Hannah, why are you special?
My immediate instinct is to laugh and say, hell no, I'm not special. Come on. But I guess if I was to really think about it, we're all special, right? I'm special because I'm unique like every single person in the world. So I would say we're all special. So that makes me special.
I'm Herb Thompson, a Green Beret and resolutionist.
And I'm Corrie Thompson, Herb's less hairy half and branding expert.
Our guests come from various backgrounds, but one thing is true. They are special.
I am Hannah Betts. I am a former policewoman, professional skydiver, Hollywood stuntwoman, and I am a self-confessed professional scaredy cat.
And
Quite special.
Quite frankly, one of our favorite people. You are a speaker with us at Liberty Speaks, and the first time we heard you speak, we were just like, wow, the authenticity like just poured out.
So kind of you to say. I'm really happy to be here with you guys.
We're going to back up a little bit. You grew up in the UK.
Yes.
Talk us through like what that was like as an 18-year-old leaving England and going, I'm going to Honduras.
I know, looking back on it, at the time, I didn't really think it was big a deal. Now I look back and I'm like, damn, that was a thing. I think I was lucky enough. My mom always encouraged me to have kind of experiences to get outside of your comfort zone. And at the time, it was starting to be a thing that was encouraged to, after kind of high school and before university, try and take like a gap year. I found an organization that would allow you to, train you to teach English to foreign students. We had to do a selection course up in Scotland, and, it wasn't automatic that you would get a place, but I was lucky enough to get selected. And yeah, at the age of 18, went to Honduras with 5 other English girls to teach English. And that was back in the late 90s. So no cell phones, no computers, no internet. The only way to get communication home was a letter that took about 6 weeks. Like, looking back on it, my poor parents, it's like, bye.
I think your parents had much more reasons to be concerned that we'll probably get into through this.
Little did they know that was the beginning.
That was just dipping the toes into like, oh my God, she did what?
When you were in Honduras, what do you think your biggest lessons learned there were?
That getting outside of your comfort zone is essential if you want to grow, that you're going to feel terrified all the time doing new things, and you won't get the confidence to do something until you on the backside of the experience, right? That you have to go in not knowing. And the only way you get the confidence is to just say yes and do something, and just to never make assumptions about other people's cultures or lifestyle or simplicity of the way, people want to live, and just how essential it is to immerse yourself in other people's culture, that your perception of how you've been brought up and raised is not necessarily correct or right, or the only way, I guess, would be the best thing that I learned as an 18-year-old pretty quickly.
I love that. That's not the only way.
Right.
Early in your career, you came back from Honduras. You're in the UK now as a 19-year-old. Walk us through your early career.
I attempted being a student. I did have a place in university when I got back from Honduras, but I just did not vibe with me. I spent 3 months at university studying geography, and by studying, I mean not going to lectures and wondering why I was there. Sorry, Mum. And to my family's just utter dismay, I left, and really without a plan. I just knew I wasn't supposed to be there. And that was terrifying because I didn't have a plan. I just knew that if I stayed, I also didn't have a plan. So I just had to make a decision. At the time, my logical answer was I became a lifeguard. I got my lifeguard qualification at the local kind of swimming pool. I saved up money, and I went to Australia to travel around Australia for about 9 months.
Because Honduras wasn't far enough. You said, let me go all the way to the opposite side of the world.
A little bit further away. Yeah, England and Australia, I think it still happens. They had this agreement where if you were under the age of 25, you could get a work visa, which would allow you to work your way around the country. So you're not just, so you could fund your travels. So that's what I did.
How did you fund your travels in Australia? You had some interesting jobs you told us about.
I did everything from blueberry picking out in the bush to door-to-door sales to waiting tables to, I think the one that you might want me to specify is dressing up like a koala to collect money for a charity outside Sydney Harbour Bridge.
So that, like, you have the Sydney Opera House there, right?
Yes.
And the big, beautiful Sydney Harbor Bridge.
Yes, and tourists walking along.
You dressed as a koala bear.
Yes, correct.
And then you decided to level that up, right?
Well, I just remember people walking past and not paying attention, and there was a tree next to me, and I thought, well, I should probably climb up in that, and that made people laugh. So I was a giant human-sized koala up in a tree, and I got way more donations that way.
But from there, you went back to the UK.
Yeah, I had applied actually. I think it's like the equivalent of an associate's degree before I left for Australia, and I got a place to study what was then called outdoor education, which is kind of 50% sports psychology, 50% practical learning about becoming an instructor in mountaineering, rock climbing, kayaking, sailing, expeditions. And then from that, I got a job with a charitable organization in Birmingham, which is the second biggest city in the UK. And it was working with inner city youth at risk, right on the cusp of kind of going down the wrong path, just starting to get in trouble with the police, and, you know, select certain people who work on their personal development. And if they, you know, showed the right attitude and promise, we take them into the great outdoors, into the mountains of Wales, and just let them see a whole different perspective of life, and use obviously nature as a metaphor, something that they never would have normally had access to. It was really rewarding work. Enjoyed it a lot.
I'll say you decided to make a career change.
Just a wee shift, yeah. I think there was, that really was a very rewarding career, and I loved it. And I think that really gave me my first taste of what it meant to get people to do things that they didn't think they were capable of, or get side out of their comfort zone. To just, if people get a little bit of encouragement, I started to realize everyone's a little bit braver than they think they are if they just have the right support behind them. And so I did genuinely enjoy that, but I think there was pressure from my family to have maybe a more solid career with kind of, you know, a career path. Somewhere along the lines, I joined the police force.
So you become a cop.
I became a cop,
and
yes.
It's much, at least my understanding, it's much different in the UK than in the US.
It's very different, and the biggest thing that people are always surprised about is that we are not armed. We have a very different gun culture in the UK, as in we don't have guns. Just a very, you know, different history, different everything. We do have an armed unit, but it's a specialist unit that's only called on very, very rare occasions. But for us, we're armed with rigid handcuffs, an asp, you know, and pepper spray, and good ability to run fast. And
you were in a police chase, and the perp tried to jump over a fence, and you jumped up and caught his ankle?
I loved a good foot chase because I could often get into smaller spaces than other people. I was pretty nimble, but I didn't always have the weight to deal with things. But I would normally get places faster than my colleagues. But this particular guy had jumped, it was running through different backyards, gardens, as we call them there. And he did get up off a wooden fence, and I jumped up and I had him. But he wasn't quite strong enough. He wasn't at an angle to take me down the other side. But I wasn't strong enough to get him off the fence. And my colleagues just always describe this scene as just hearing me go, I'm in here. And they just turn around and I'm just hanging. They were like, it was like a little pit bull terrier. Just had him. So that was a more common thing.
Can you talk us through what it's like being unarmed and having a situation that's potentially dangerous or volatile? How did you manage that? How did you work through that?
I think in some ways we have the advantage, just the way that the gun culture is different in the UK. The UK, I would say, in regards to policing, can be a little bit more community oriented. So we are out there, quote unquote, chasing the bad men and women, but we're also really engaged within the community as well, which I think is helpful in the sense that we've kind of got the support from the people that are on the right side of the law. But in regards to dealing with the fear or going into potentially dangerous scenarios, I think we had the mental option that de-escalating the situation was very much an option because we don't have to worry about firearms. We still have to worry about our physical safety, and we wear stab-proof vests 24 hours a day because that's kind of our method of violence in the UK. We like to stab people. And as an example, if we were going, we were called to a big bar fight or something, I would often be first through the door because it just de-escalates the situation immediately. You send someone the size of Herb's, and obviously people sometimes square up and get more agitated. I would just walk in and almost just be like, what are you guys doing? Like, sit down. This is ridiculous. And it just disarms people.
Did you have to give yourself a pep talk going in?
Yeah, without a doubt. It's scary, but also if you go in with the attitude that you're not going to fight, you're not going to make this worse, that there is a way to de-escalate it with words as opposed to match strength with strength or violence with violence. I was put in a few situations where it was just me and another colleague, and it was dangerous. We could have gotten seriously hurt, and my choice was to sit down and put my weapons away. And it saved me, and the offender actually just sat down and broke down in tears. Now, had I reacted the way he was expecting me to react, it could have been a really different story. I don't think anybody would have won in that situation. Sure. But I do think we have the ability to go in with that attitude more so because the fear of fatal injuries is less.
Less there.
Yes.
And we're talking about fear and risk. That wasn't risky enough. It wasn't not fear causing enough. You said, I'm going to start skydiving.
I grew up in a very rural area on the coast, and so a lot of my life was kind of outdoors and, being out on the ocean, cliff jumping, meet your friends, just cycling everywhere. Just, I don't know, that was just kind of how I was brought up. I just wasn't a city person. So moving to the city, I just had this need for a different, I just suddenly realized I was just a police officer and I needed a little challenge outside of work. And I think a friend that I had met who was actually ex-military during police training talked about, a civilian skydiving course that he did. And it always stuck with me. And I remember one day I had a really old car that was falling apart. And I remember saying to my sister, I don't know where this came. I should probably spend the very little savings that I have replacing this car. Or I could sign up for a skydiving course. And
you did the responsible thing.
I did the responsible thing and signed up for the skydiving course. And in my mind, it really was just to kind of get what we call, your basic A license to show that you've got enough skill to jump out of a plane on your own, land your parachute, and for me, call it good and have a story to say, I have my skydiving, my basic skydiving license. So my plan was not to continue into it. It was just something to challenge myself for a couple of weeks and then walk away. Little did I know.
You now have over 8,500 jumps. What was that first jump like?
I was the biggest scaredy cat. I really was a scaredy. The whole experience was scary because I turned up on my own. I was the only woman in a room full of, I think there were 5 other students. They were all men. At the time, all the instructors were men as well. It's very different now. The way we learn is you have 2 instructors holding it. It's very different. It's not static line, how you guys, unfortunately, the brutal way of static line learning. We had it easier. But so we would go to full altitude, which is about 12,000 feet. And you'd actually have 2 instructors hold on to you either side, like stabilizers. So you're in free fall like this, and you'd have an instructor holding on to you this side and an instructor holding on to you this side. And you'd have to look at them and go check in, check out, up, down, and exit the aircraft in a body position that you've been told. And I remember at the time as I was walking to the door, it was such an out-of-body experience that I specifically remember thinking, I think this is a dream, so just go. It's fine. This isn't real. It was almost like my brain had to trick myself out of reality. And I did learn something from that, because I remember saying to myself, you just have to say up, down, out. Forget everything else, because we drilled everything, and you just have to say up, down, out. And then you're out. Then you have to figure it out. right? So if I kept thinking towards everything else, further down the line, that would have made me go, you know what, I don't want to do this. And I remember saying that to myself, just do those 3 things and everything else will follow. But I was terrified. I was the most baby student, to the point that watching other people leave the plane before me freaked me out, just the way they would just leave, even though they would just disappear. And even though that was my intention to do the same thing, seeing it happen in front of me terrified me so much that it was a joke. I used to, for the first 50 skydives, I would walk towards the door backwards so I didn't see everybody leave before. So I am not a brave person, guys. I was sorry.
Did you ever consider just going first?
Sometimes I did.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. But you don't always get that. Especially when you're learning, because you have a big parachute, you take longer to get down to the ground. So quite often the beginners are always at the other end of the plane, so they're going last. But yeah, I was such a scaredy cat.
It almost, in a way, to me, sounds a lot like the other things that you had done professionally at that point, because you'd kind of made these decisions and you took these risks, but you kind of simplified what those things were that you were doing, and then you just went for it.
Yeah. I think it's breaking it down just to what's the first thing that I need to do, and just do that. Just do that, not in a reckless, spontaneous or impulsive way necessarily, but I just think when you look at the bigger picture of things, it can get too overwhelming. So I always just take it down to that first step. And I think over time, like I said earlier, I've just learned that the confidence lives on the backside of the experience. And the more you understand that, the more you just realize, the only thing that removes doubt is action. That's the only thing that you know. And I've kind of learned to live by that. And
you kept jumping out of planes and became a world champion skydiver.
I did. And trust me, when I learned to skydive, nobody looked at me and went, there's a world champion in the making.
I was a flying
just
squirrel
petrified. I was just so tense and so scared. And I just had a lot of encouragement from people to stick to it. I was actually a terrible student. I failed a few levels because I was so tense. So when they'd let go, I would start turning and I couldn't stop the turn because I just wasn't good. And I was actually going to quit. And somebody walked past me once, an instructor, and I think they recognized that I was honestly going to Irish goodbye and just walk out of the skydiving center and just never come back. So I was like, this is not for me. I'm bad at it. And one guy just went, hey, don't even worry. Everybody learns at different paces. Keep going. He says, it's not hard. You'll figure it out, and just walked off. And that guy had no idea that he changed, honestly, just that comment of a little bit of confidence or a little bit of encouragement changed the entire projection of my life, because I was going to walk out. But because of that comment, I was like, fine, I'll go up and do that level again. And then I passed, and then I gradually got better.
And you never know when just something like that's a little simple statement of that guy walking by makes a difference in their day or changes their whole life. In your case, I agree. It changed the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
So you never know. Just a simple little encouraging comment.
And that was someone that was paying attention. That was aware enough in the room that somebody was struggling. I wasn't saying anything, but that is someone reading the room.
Some point in your skydiving career, as you're doing this, you make the move to the U.S.
Yes. From
the UK and say, hey, I'm going to go live in the United States. What was that move like?
It was interesting. So during my skydiving career, I was lucky enough to get on the British skydiving team. And we actually were lucky enough to get some sponsorship, low-level sponsorship, just enough peanut butter and jelly sandwich sponsorship to be able to train in the States, in California, because even though the UK has a very thriving, very talented, skydiving scene, top of their game, we don't always get the consistent weather to be able to do sometimes 800, 1,000 training skydives a year to get to world championship level. So we would fly to California. Skydive Paris was our drop zone, and one of the best coaches in the world was there, Dan Brodsky-Chedenfeld. We really didn't have the experience to win. We had no business having a secret goal of winning. We were absolutely the underdogs, to the point people would be like, oh, you're going to the world championships. That's so cute. But underneath, we were like, watch us.
Almost like the Jamaican bobsled team. That.
Completely that is without the accents, or different accents. But we trained for the world championships, which is an entirely separate podcast, I think, but we won by the skin of our teeth, which was just an insane achievement. At the end of it, I had taken a career break from the police. We're lucky in the UK where they allow you to take up to a 5-year career break. Yeah, and return, because they realized that they would actually keep a better retention if they allow people to go off and explore different life experiences and come back, as opposed to make the decision, I'm out. In this case, it backfired on them, but theory does show that they have a better long-term retention that way. At the end of our 2-year training, I just had this real feeling that I just needed to continue onwards, forwards. Going back to the police force just felt like a step back, and I just had this drive to keep moving forward. I didn't particularly have a plan, just a feeling. So I spoke to the skydiving center that we trained at and asked if they would help me sponsor me with a sports working visa so I could work for the skydiving center, because we lost our sponsorship the second year. I had like $600 to my name, had sold most of my worldly belongings, and I turned up to the States with a month's rent and 2 bags and my skydiving rig and a room to stay in a wing and a prayer. But I didn't know that I was going to get a job. And so I spent the first few months filming tandem skydivers, so that, I had a camera helmet. And so people that are just coming to do skydiving for a day for fun, I was the person climbing outside of the plane and filming that. And during that time, I got my instructional ratings. And I was also coaching private amateur teams, because I was lucky enough to have the free fall and team experience that I was becoming a coach for my discipline as well. And then through that, I started working with military as well.
Yes.
Like special operations guys, right?
Yes.
Like big, burly
Herb size
dudes
with lots of tattoos.
And you were going to go in and be their instructor.
I think people often equate military with, the best skydivers in the world, which they are, like, hats off to them. But what you guys do is a mode of transport to get on the ground and then do the real hard stuff, right? We always joke that if you want to take all the fun out of skydiving, do it in the military, right? Because it's hard. You guys are jumping with equipment, and it's a whole thing.
And you hit the ground much differently.
Sometimes, yeah, with the equipment and everything. But as civilian skydivers, like some of us when we're full time, we're doing up to 1,000 skydives a year. So we do become the experts in training free fall techniques, which is all the same, and training military how to fly with all the rucks and all the equipment that they have, and we can train them in the wind tunnels first. So I ended up a few times being lead instructor, like the ground lead instructor, so doing all the ground training before we even step foot in the wind tunnel or the plane. I just remember being just so intimidated, having to walk into a room, with 10 guys that looked like Herb staring back at me. And I was telling you guys last night, the first few times that I did it, even though I was this incredibly experienced skydiver, I'd have to stop in my car, like before getting to the center, and give myself a pep talk. Like, you know more than them. They just look big and scary. They're going to question you. It's okay. You have the knowledge to back it up. I had to give myself a pep talk and then like walk into the room and just own it. But I would spend the first minute
leaning into fear.
I had to lean into it. It dawned on me that when I first walked into the room, it wasn't naturally apparent to my students that I was going to be their instructor. Like, who's this little woman walking in, and why does she also have a weird accent? Oh shit, she's our instructor. And I would watch their faces slowly dial in. So I really made sure that the first minute I didn't say anything. I didn't give any essential information or anything important. I'd give them a chance to settle in before I started really talking about what we were going to do for the day once they're dialed in. I'm not saying they're all sat there like judging me. Like a lot of it was my own perception and my own fears, right? Putting on them. And for me, military, I used to love training military because you're trained to learn. So teaching was a joy.
Tell Corrie that. I can learn and I can trainable.
It might take Hannah. Hannah might be able to train you. I think that's like a specialized course, maybe.
I think when it comes into the title of husband and wife, that goes out the window immediately.
Yeah. Reading the room again and trusting your instinct. Again, you were able to really assess how to connect with them. No matter what their thoughts were or weren't, you were identifying a way to really be able to coach them at their best readiness.
Absolutely. And what I learned was the same. They were all scared too. But again, they've kind of like me, the military, you've been trained, you've practiced being scared over and over again. You're not, this is what I say about myself. I'm not fearless. I have just practiced being scared over and over again, and that fear becomes familiar. And I feel like that was the same with military. But once I realized this guy is just as terrified as I am the first time I was jumped out, they're just showing it in a different way or not showing it. And they're having just as many problems as I was learning. There's always someone that doesn't quite get it. I think one of the reasons I like talking about this is because I've realized over the years there's just been this assumption that I'm either like an adrenaline junkie or extra courageous than them, or I don't have this sense of fear.
Or you're psycho.
Or that I need to be clinically tested. Yeah. And it's just, and I just feel really passionate about explaining to people, I'm such a scaredy cat. I'm such a baby about so many things. Like, I get nervous having to just introduce myself in a room full of people. I have that same feeling, and I just very passionate about explaining that to people, because I think often people look at others doing things that they think they could never do, and they think they're doing it because they don't feel what they're feeling. And I'm like, yes, I do. Yeah. But I've just figured out how to navigate it and actually be really honest about when I'm feeling scared. I'm not a huge fan of the fake it till you make it. I'm much more of a, I'm shitting my pants right now, but it's okay kind of vibe. And that seems to have worked well for
when they're
me.
like, before we go any further, do you have any questions? And your hand goes up. I'm shitting my pants right now.
But that's okay. Yeah, it's all right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it wasn't enough just to skydive. You then start to make a move to become a Hollywood stunt woman.
Yeah.
How'd you make that transition to being a Hollywood stunt woman?
I actually said out loud, I'd gotten to the point where I was almost too comfortable in my job. It had become too familiar. And I said to a friend, we were competing at nationals at the time, I don't know what it is. I'm ready for a change. I'm ready for a transition. I'm not sure what it was. The next day, literally, I even remember where we were driving, to skydive Chicago. The moment I got this phone call, and it was from a very established freefall film videographer, Craig O'Brien, who every amazing skydiving sequence you've seen on film or TV, he's probably filmed it. And he said, I had a call from a stunt coordinator from a Marvel TV show. They have this skydiving scene coming up. It's not necessarily actually jumping out of a plane, but he needs someone athletic that understand skydiving movement to do wire work, and you happen to look exactly like the actress that they need doubling. Are you available? So that was my taste of getting the opportunity of being on set. I always talk to people about it. Quite often people are like, oh, you're a stunt woman, how lucky. I'm like, I was really lucky to get that opportunity, but that could have just been it. I could have been sat here and told the story. There was one time I got to double someone on set, and that was my lucky moment. I think it's then what you do with that luck. And if you decide to change that into opportunity, I was lucky enough to have a conversation with the stunt coordinator, and started explaining to me what I would need to do to really become an established stunt woman, that it would take years. I need to train. I did have a background in gymnastics and a lot of sporting activities, which gave me a head start for sure. And I was coming into the stunt world at a relatively late age. And he looked at me and he was like, kind of like your attitude. He's like, start training, show me some videos, and I'll keep using you until you fuck up. Let's see how long you last. was his wording. And often he'd be like, didn't fuck up today, you could come back next week.
Still employed.
Yeah, but amongst that, I was finding all the spots in LA where stunt people trained. I didn't live in LA at the time, so I was driving 3-4 hour round trips just to meet one stunt coordinator and introduce them with my resume.
Is there a stunt school?
Which is what surprises people in America. It's a little bit of the wild, wild west. There is no like certification or a school that you go to and you have done all these training techniques. You're now a stunt person.
This is crazy because there's like clown college.
Exactly.
You could go to college to be a clown, but you can't go to a school to be a stunt person.
There are lots of different training grounds to learn separate skills, but there isn't a school. So that,
and is there a manual that like shares where all those are?
Hell no. You have to have a certain amount of grit and tenacity. So it weeds out people from the start because you have to figure out where people are training. You've got to figure out what you want to specialize in and how are you going to meet people within the industry. And there is no straight path. It just takes a lot of not giving up, just keep moving forward. And there were many a times I remember just saying to some friends, I don't know. This is too hard. And friends were like, you have come too far to quit now. And it is that moment. And then as I pushed past that moment was when I suddenly found myself working more regularly. And again, another lesson, when you get to that point where you're like, oh, it's too hard, what's the point? That is the time when you have to say, keep going, because it's often closer than you think it is.
Had you not opened yourself up to that being a potential, do you think you would have followed that path? Because I don't know many people that go, I want to be a Hollywood stunt person.
Sure. I understand the cringe feeling of when manifesting and all of that comes out, but I'm not saying that you sit there and go, tomorrow I'd like to be a Hollywood stunt woman, bring it on. But I think when you do, ta-da, here it is. Ta-da. But I do think there is truth in when you do think about it or say something out loud or be brave enough to want more than what you have right now, or to state a goal that other people may roll their eyes at. It opens your curiosity to, if something's over here waving a potential opportunity, to look that way and go towards it, as opposed to keep your blinkers on and miss it. By saying it, it casts your net wider to see opportunities that other people may say, oh, that was just lucky. But you go to, like I said, you go towards that one moment of luck and then turn that into the opportunity. So I agree. I cringe, but I agree.
What are maybe some misconceptions or things you've seen where no, this is the reality of it?
That it's not glamorous by any stretch of the imagination. That it's often incredibly uncomfortable. That you wear shoes that don't fit you properly and your feet are killing all day, or you're freezing your ass off.
Why don't you wear shoes that fit?
Because we're trying to, I say shoes that don't fit. Let's say shoes that you would not choose to wear. So say I'm doubling a woman in high heels,
I see.
right?
I see.
People don't realize that we're quite often just in low-level discomfort that you just have to put up with. Sometimes the sucking it up thing is not doing the actual stunt itself. It's the build up to it, or the waiting, or I'm sure you can relate in the military in a lot of ways. You just
hurry up and wait
and be really uncomfortable while it's happening as well. It hurts. People are always like, how do you do that without it hurting? And you're like, well, it does, but there's a difference between it being painful and getting injured. So if you have the correct skill and the correct training, you do make something look incredibly violent safe, that you should be able to do multiple times. But that doesn't mean it's not a little bit of a thumper at times or ouchy, right?
And you get paid per stunt. So if they want to shoot that scene 5 times,
ideally you should be getting that. There's a budget. We'll get a base rate, and then there's this thing called a stunt adjustment that you get extra on your base rate depending what you do, whether it's just simple, eating shit on concrete versus getting set on fire, or doing a very specialty thing that only a few people can do. And ideally, normally it is, depending on the budget, it should be per take. Sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes you're not mad about doing it again when you know you're getting paid. But I think that the biggest misnomer, honestly, is that we're a bunch of adrenaline wreckhead junkie, you know, that we're reckless or that we're just sending stuff. But we're honestly some of the most disciplined, calculated, thoughtful, going through worst case scenario, working backwards, incredibly, and it may sound counterintuitive, but some of the safest people that I work with.
I know there's one scene you did where you're in a car at night, blindfolded.
My worst fear.
Corrie's worst fear, and then throwing a frog because we found out your irrational fear is frogs and toads.
Everyone has an irrational fear.
Yeah.
Mine,
It's okay.
it's terrible.
Mine's zombies.
Yeah.
But did you think it was dangerous?
The stunt was, it was night. There's a lake, a very murky lake that you can only see, like you can't barely see your hand in front of your face. And we were simulating a car crash, someone crashing into the lake, which
My heart is racing just hearing this description.
You're not. A lot of people don't like me describing this, so you're not in the minority here. But
go right ahead. It's fascinating.
The idea was to simulate a car crash and that car sink with me in it. The blindfolding came a little bit later as part of the storyline, and I won't bore you with the ridiculous plot that is network TV. The way they set it up, I was in a Prius, a car that they had cut a big hole out of in the kind of the center. They were like, we think it's going to sink. We're not sure. We hope it does. And the car is suspended about 15 feet above a lake from a crane, and I'm in it. We had oxygen tanks, regulators, obviously strapped down. I had one on my leg, one as an emergency one. You know, had to drill, doing everything blind in case it goes wrong over and over again to make sure, because we had to go through worst case scenario that it would sink and for some reason safety couldn't get me out, or that the car, once it dropped into the water, might roll and I might be sat there for 30 minutes in the dark on my own, just on a reg, breathing. And that's one thing that we always do is, okay, what's the worst? I'm going to prepare for the worst case scenario. I want to be in a mentality where this is the worst case, not hope it doesn't happen. Imagine that happening. And if it doesn't, great. But I don't want to be surprised and panic when the worst does happen. Car gets released, and we had a plan that I had some acting beats to do as it dropped in. And they were like, you'll have plenty of time to do the acting beats because we don't think that car's going to sink. If it does, it's going to be real slow. And then the moment I hit the water, I saw the water rushing in. I was like, oh, I've got about 10 seconds to get these acting beats in before like the water is here. But like, I just remember going, not sink my ass. It was like, this is going down. Had to scream about doing a bunch of stuff. And then when the water got to about here, I stashed a mask in the glove compartment, got my reg in, put my mask on. And just as it sank down, that's when I just go into like, I'm just going to sing a nursery rhyme, just chill out right here. Really not like think about what's going on.
As you're in the car sinking to the bottom of the water.
And it didn't fully sit, but the water level got up there, and my amazing water safety, Katie Rowe, I just remember looking at the window going, I wonder if someone's going to turn up soon. I hope they do. And suddenly saw a mask, and she pulled me out, and it was all fine. But
so now you mentioned this person, your water safety person.
Yeah.
Talk to me about trust. How important is trust in your career?
It's huge, and we always talk about, we've obviously got a great deal of responsibility, but often we're on wires, and there's a huge rig set up. So the stunt riggers are the unsung heroes on the stunt world, because that's what I'm hanging off like 100 feet in the sky. That's what I'm being ratcheted through the sky, or the fire safety, or the water safety. So it's very important to know your team and have that trust, but it's a huge team effort.
You're in an alley and it takes you across the alley, slingshots you, throws you into the wall, and you smear down the wall.
Yeah. On fire.
And
on fire.
On fire. So it wasn't enough. We got to set you on fire too. But everyone else set that up.
Everyone else set that up. So they've been there, you know, the concept comes up, the pre-rigging comes up. We test it with like 100-pound bag first instead of me. Someone's on the button, the timing of the explosion, the timing of the button of me coming out of that explosion. If not, I'm wrapped in a propane explosion. So the timing has to be perfect because I got to come out of it. I can't just sit in it. There's so many moving parts, but that's why.
I love your fit. I just watching Corrie Corrie's face and all this of like, what
it's rehearsed, right? So I don't just turn up and like put my harness on, strap me up, let's go. You see all the pictures of me beforehand, just thinking about the timing. I'm going to hold my breath. I'm going to have my arm here so I don't catch the wire. This is my action to make it look like I'm running through the sky before I get to the wall. I have to protect myself. And then when I land, I've got to land with my head at this angle with the camera, but I got to make sure my arm is away from my face so my face doesn't get the flames. You know, it's all premeditated. Sure. And so, but I think that's what people don't realize about stunts is there's a lot of moving parts all the time, and you have to slow your breath. That's a lot that's happening, but in my mind, it's all happening in slow motion. After 3, 2, 1, you just go into tunnel vision and everything slows down. But those are the things that we're thinking about, but we're rehearsing it over and over again, and we're doing the timing, and we do dry runs until we're like, oh, okay, this is it. We're doing it live, and we build up to it. You know, the first time I did that big, when we say ratchet, it's kind of, I'm on a wire and a line and compressed air and it shoots you across the sky. But we had crash pads on the wall the first time we did it in case we calculated it. Not ideal, you know. So it's not like we just come in, set me on fire and see what happens. It's a
First
process.
we slam you into a wall.
First we do
potentially.
That. Yeah.
Moving into professional speaking, what do you find more fearful?
I would for sure, especially the first time. And I kind of knew it just because I knew the way that I am, that the first time I would do public speaking would probably be the most scared I've ever been in my entire life. And I was 100% correct. Like, I just knew it. Like, I was convinced the audience could hear my heartbeat. But to the point that I used my own technique in the sense that I told the audience, like, I'm talking about fear, but right now I'm legit blacked out, terrified. But again, I think it comes with that familiarity, right? It's just scary because I'm not used to it, and I haven't experienced it yet. Public speaking is newer to me, so I'm less familiar with it, so I still get those nerves. But without a doubt, hand on heart, most scared I've ever been.
And I have to say, we've listened to it, and it was incredible. And it shocked us that it was your first time. So you're speaking really confidently about something that you've known for your entire career.
Yeah, completely. And it's kind of that full circle of helping people navigate fear, because I am experienced about it. But I often joke that before I do my presentation, I have to go back and listen to me talk about how to face your fear so I can go up and talk about fear.
I love it.
Yeah.
What do you enjoy most about getting up and speaking to a group? Is there something you enjoy a lot about that, or what fires you up for that?
Genuinely firing a piece of their brain or thought process that hasn't been fired before, and watching when you connect with some people and you're talking and you really do see that light go off, that you like that off the cuff comment that changed the trajectory of my life. I'm not saying that's what's happening every time, but I do like the fact that I might be planting a seed in someone's brain that they haven't thought about. And I really enjoy trying to explain to everyone or showing people that we're all a little bit braver than we think we are. And I like to try and get that message across to people. So when you see that light bulb go off, or you see people connect, and you almost see people grow in confidence, or their brain is that thing that they've always been thinking about that they're not sure if they should do, seeing that process kind of unfold brings me a lot of joy. What
do you value most in life?
The word that comes to mind is authenticity. Being surrounded by authenticity, because if not, what's the point? We're not here to be on a planet just to put on a show the whole time and pretend not to be ourselves. And I think what is missing is authenticity. And I think from every level, whether it's talking about like corporate leadership or just being in a room full of people, I just think authenticity is one of the most important things that we should kind of strive towards. Yeah.
Subscribe, like, and comment, and don't forget to set those notifications. We'll see you next week with another special guest.
Until then, own your journey.